A $20 billion American warship just turned around and ran at full speed. This was not a drill. It was not a computer simulation. Iran just fired missiles at a massive U.S. aircraft carrier carrying 5,000 sailors and 60 fighter jets. And instead of fighting back, the pride of the U.S. Navy fled the scene. This is the moment everyone was afraid of, the moment the United States blinked. You have to understand the gravity of what just happened. We are not talking about a small patrol boat getting harassed in the water. We are talking about a floating city. A U.S. carrier group travels with destroyers, submarines, and enough firepower to level a small country. It is the ultimate symbol of power. It is supposed to be invincible. But Iran launched a strike from over 200 miles away, and that image of invincibility just shattered into a million pieces. It sent a shockwave through the Pentagon. Allies are watching. Enemies are taking notes. Because if America runs, the rules of the game have officially changed. So, why did the captain turn the ship around? Why run? Fear, pure and simple. Military analysts looking at the radar data say Iran didn't even use their best weapons. This was a warning shot, a specific, calculated signal to say, back off. The real nightmare is what they held back. Iran has hypersonic missiles sitting in the launch tubes right now. These are not normal rockets. They travel at 6,000 kilometers per hour. That is faster than a speeding bullet. There is no defense system on Earth that can stop them reliably. Not the Iron Dome, not the high-tech Aegis system on that carrier. Trying to shoot down a hypersonic missile is like trying to catch a rifle bullet with a baseball mitt. It is physically impossible. If one of those hits, it doesn't just scratch the paint. The ship sinks. 5,000 American soldiers go into the water. That is the math the White House is doing right now. It is a decision no president has had to make since the Cuban Missile Crisis. But there is another layer to this disaster, and it hits your wallet directly. This is an economic war, and right now, America is on the losing side of the ledger. Look at the numbers. To stop an incoming attack, the U.S. Navy fires interceptor missiles. Each one of those high-tech defenders costs anywhere from $1 million to $3 million. But the attack drones Iran is using, they are cheap. They cost as little as $20,000 to build. Think about that math for a second. America is spending millions of dollars to stop something that costs pocket change. It is like using a solid gold bar to smash a cheap plastic toy. You go broke winning that fight. Iran knows this. They have been engineering their military for years to exploit this exact weakness. They don't need to sink the fleet to win. They just need to bankrupt the defense budget. While the military plays war games, Wall Street is quietly panic selling. This all happened near the Strait of Hormuz. If you don't know where that is, pull up a map. It is the single most important stretch of water on the entire planet. Roughly 20 million barrels of oil pass through that tiny gap every single day. That is the world's energy jugular vein. If Iran controls that water, they control the global light switch. Right now, insurance companies are freaking out. They are repricing the risk for every oil tanker in the region. Some companies are refusing to cover the ships entirely. Captains are dropping anchor and refusing to sail. The market is pricing in a new reality where the U.S. Navy can't protect the world's oil supply anymore. That isn't a theory. That is what the futures market is saying with real money today. But believe it or not, the oil isn't the scary part. The missiles aren't even the scary part. The real danger is what happens in the next 72 hours. Because while America is retreating, another player is stepping up, Israel. They are watching this happen, and they are pushing the U.S. to do something drastic. There is a nuclear option on the table right now. I am not speaking metaphorically. I mean a literal documented military plan. It is called the Samson option. And what it says will make your blood run cold. The Samson option is not a strategy for winning a war. It is a strategy for ending the world. Here is the simple version. If Israel faces a threat so big that it might not survive, they don't just surrender. They flip the table. The doctrine basically says, if we go down, we are taking everyone else with us. It is the geopolitical equivalent of holding a live grenade in a crowded room and threatening to pull the pin. Experts believe Israel has about 90 nuclear warheads sitting in the desert right now. Of course, the Israeli government won't tell you that. They have a policy called nuclear ambiguity. They never say yes, they never say no, but every intelligence agency on the planet treats those nukes as a hard fact. And right now, behind closed doors, Israeli officials are pushing the United States to do the unthinkable. They want strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. Not with tanks, not with soldiers, with heavy bombardment. This puts the White House in an impossible box. Donald Trump already talked a big game. He stood on a stage and told the world he would decide the future of Iran's leadership. He spoke about changing the regime like he was deciding what to have for dinner. It was arrogant, it was loud, and Iran heard him loud and clear. That missile shot at the aircraft carrier, that was their reply. It was Iran saying, you want to change our government? We will sink your fleet. The psychological line has been crossed. Iran is no longer fighting for influence. It is fighting for survival. And when a country fights for survival, the gloves come off. But while the politicians argue, real people are terrified. We need to look away from the maps for a second and look at the cities. Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Doha, these are places built on luxury and safety. But right now, they are potential war zones, and the people who will suffer aren't the billionaires in the penthouses. It is the workers. Millions of people from Pakistan, India, the Philippines, and Africa move to the Gulf to find work. They build the skyscrapers, they drive the taxis, they clean the hotels, they send money home every single month to feed their families. They did not sign up for World War III. No recruiter told them, by the way, your construction site might get hit by a ballistic missile. These are innocent people trapped in a cage match between superpowers. They are checking their phones for air raid alerts while the people starting the war are sitting safely in bunkers thousands of miles away. And this leads us to the biggest problem of all, the trap. President Trump is currently stuck in a political nightmare. His approval ratings on this war are tanking. Even his biggest donors are asking, what are we doing here? The American people want out. The polls are clear, but Trump cannot leave. Why? Because leaving looks like losing. Think about the optics. A $20 billion U.S. aircraft carrier just got chased away by Iran. If the U.S. backs down now, it admits that Iran won. It admits that all that money, all that military hardware, couldn't stop a few drones and missiles. No president wants to be the guy who ran away, especially not this one. So the instinct is to double down, to escalate, to find a bigger target and hit it harder just to prove you are still the boss. That is how you stumble into a catastrophe. You attack because you are too proud to stop. But here is the twist that nobody in the mainstream media is telling you. There is an off-ramp. There is a way to stop this today. Iran put a specific deal on the table. It wasn't a secret whisper. It was an open offer. They said the fighting stops immediately. No more missiles, no more threats. Complete silence. But the United States has to do one thing in return. One thing that Washington has refused to do for 40 years. The offer is simple. You have 10 days. Iran said if the United States packs up its military bases and leaves the Middle East, just takes the troops and goes home, the war ends instantly. It is the zero option. Leave us alone, and we'll leave you alone. Silence. That is what Iran is offering. Imagine the Strait of Hormuz opening up. The oil tankers start moving again. The price of gas drops. Workers in Dubai and Qatar can finally sleep through the night without an air raid siren screaming at 3 a.m. 10 days. That is the timeline. Pack up the bases. Take the soldiers home. And everything goes back to normal. Now, you might think that sounds crazy. You might think America never runs away. And you are right. From a political standpoint, leaving looks like a surrender. It looks like weakness. It looks like Iran won the game. But you have to ask yourself a very hard question. Compared to what? Because the alternative, the path we are on right now, is a highway to hell. Option B is sending more aircraft carriers into a trap. It means sailing billion-dollar ships into the range of hypersonic missiles that cannot be stopped. It means spending $2 million on an interceptor missile to shoot down a drone that costs less than a used Honda Civic. That is bad math. You cannot win a war when you spend a fortune to destroy pennies. It is bankruptcy by 1,000 cuts. And that is just the money. Think about the blood. If one calculation goes wrong, just one, we are looking at 5,000 American soldiers dying in a single afternoon. If a hypersonic missile hits a destroyer, it doesn't just make a hole. It vaporizes it. The stock market wouldn't just dip, it would close. The global food supply chain would snap. You would see shortages in your local grocery store within a week. This is not fear-mongering. This is just logic. Run the simulation forward. Iran knows it. The Pentagon knows it. The Gulf states definitely know it. That is why the Prime Minister of Qatar was on the phone immediately. That is why Saudi Arabia is terrified. They are realizing that American protection might actually be making them less safe. When your bodyguard is the one starting the fight, you are the one who gets punched. History is flashing a giant red warning light right now. This is exactly how empires fall. It doesn't happen with one big explosion. It happens slowly. It happens when you overextend. It happens when you spend too much money fighting wars you cannot win. Britain learned this the hard way. The Soviet Union learned it in the mountains of Afghanistan. They went broke, trying to hold on to power they couldn't afford. America is hitting that same wall. The old strategy of parking a warship off the coast and scaring everyone into submission, it is over. It doesn't work anymore. Iran proved it. They fired at the king, and the king ran away. The question isn't whether America leaves the Middle East. History says they eventually will. The question is, how much damage happens before they make that choice? How many people have to die? How many economies have to collapse? The smartest people in Washington are looking at the radar screen, and they are realizing the checkmate is already on the board. But there is actually a much bigger threat than the missiles. While everyone is watching the aircraft carrier, nobody is watching the bank account. Iran and its allies have launched a different kind of attack, one that doesn't use explosives, but targets the US dollar directly. If this specific domino falls, your savings are in immediate danger. You need to see exactly how this economic weapon works and why the Federal Reserve is powerless to stop it. Click this video right here to understand the financial war that is about to hit your wallet. I'll see you there.